Welcome to day 3 of Wisdom 2.0. Letting yourself settle into your chair, whether you're in the room in San Francisco or whether you're, in one time zone or another around the entirety of this globe that we call home. Settling, if you will, into the body, into, in some sense, the most available and accessible and immediate door into wakefulness, and classically spoken of as the first foundation or establishment of mindfulness. And experiencing the entirety of the body, sitting here, wherever here is for you, now, whatever time it says on the clock, still now, everywhere. And resting in awareness itself. Underneath thinking, if thinking comes up, or emotions, or, whatever arises in the mind or the body, just seeing if you can not struggle with any of it, but simply drop underneath it into the interstitials between thoughts, where just like musical notes, there's always space between the notes that allows for the music to be what it is. And it's the same with the beauty of being human. No problem whatsoever with thoughts, but they do unfold and emerge and disappear into a much larger space of silence. And that silence, when it's conjoined with wakefulness, with our inborn awareness that is never not available, that silence just becomes our default mode, our home, our refuge, where we can take shelter from all the madness, the full catastrophe of the human condition, if you will, and settle into the boundless spaciousness of our own heart, embodied and not separate from awareness itself. And with that kind of vector of everything I've just said, the most supreme meditative guidance at this point would be for me to just keep my mouth shut. And for you to just give yourself over to resting in awareness. And then every time you do get caught up in the thought stream and emotional reactivity, or the future or the past, or liking or disliking, or fear or anger, the awareness that knows it sooner or later, that's the awareness that you're resting in now. So it's always here. It's like a constitutive aspect of our being, and it truly is a superpower that we have, as a species, far too long sort of ignored or taken for granted. And although no neuroscientist understands how it arises, you can actually reside in this capacity. And I would say that at least the planet at this particular moment has a very, very big stake in your willingness to do that as you, not as somebody else, not as a kind of disciple of anybody else, or because we are all disciples of each other and learning from each other. But what is your karmic assignment right now in this moment? So I'm going to bring this into the silence, and it should be brought in such a way that with such a degree of gentleness and actually as a kind of love affair, so that it doesn't disturb the silence at all. But just ask yourself, what the fuck am I doing here right in this moment? If you'll pardon me putting it that way, but I do it for a certain kind of, you know, reason that has to do with urgency. Why did I tune in if I'm tuning in remotely? And why did I make my way to San Francisco or make my way to the venue to hear this wide range of people give presentations? And if you're a presenter, why did you say yes? And these are actually non-trivial inquiries. And I'd like to frame it in the form of a question uh, that we might examine or kind of investigate for ourselves is, what is my karmic assignment at this particular moment? And I'm guessing that whether you're a presenter or whether you're a participant, none of us would have showed up if in some sense that question was not really fecund and very much at the forefront of our lives at this particular moment. What is our karmic assignment now? What is called for now in the form of us, whoever we are, and each one of us uniquely different, and each one of us tapping into our own form of genius, whether it's through, you know, uh, generalized AI and chatbot GTP or whatever it is. Everybody in this entire space that's hearing my words right now is a full-blown embodied genius. So what is it that brings you here? And not so much filling up the space with thought-driven answers, but resting in the kind of not knowing, underneath thinking altogether. What is my karmic assignment at this particular moment on the planet? What would I love so much I'd pay to do it? And whether you have tons of resources or far less resourced, devoting your life to waking up is has its costs. And why would you pay? To be, to manifest, to put your shoulder to the wheel as the full dimensionality of your beauty, of the beauty of your being in this particular moment. So just letting that settle in for a moment. Long, complicated way of saying, why are you really, 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 really here? And who are you anyway, underneath all the thinking and narratives and credentials and projections from other people? Alyssa Apple, who will be following me, I believe, on your program, and I were just the other day in Boston celebrating, believe it or not, the inauguration of the Thich Nhat Hanh Center for Mindfulness at Harvard University, at the Harvard School of Public Health. And there were at least 40 monastics there from Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition and all sorts of scientists and leaders within the university. And it was like Harvard is promoting mindfulness as a kind of vehicle for profound public health. And the idea that that would have happened, say, 50 years ago is slightly less probable than that the expanding universe coming out of the Big Bang, ever accelerating, would have ground to a halt and collapsed back on itself. It's possible that that could happen, but it's a very low probability event. And yet, I would say mindfulness moving into the mainstream of Harvard University and Oxford University and Brown University and the University of California, San Diego, and all over the world, centers for mindfulness. I mean, that was an even smaller probability of happening, and yet it's already happened. And I think I take that as diagnostic of something that we all need to learn, and that is that the improbable can actually take form and flourish and flower, and maybe just in time, just the way they have, sort of the just in time kind of supply chains, which actually got really badly screwed up during the pandemic. But the notion that, maybe we are still just in time to be able to make a difference if you know what your karmic assignment really is, or don't know, but are willing to stay in the exploration at the uncomfortable interface of knowing and not knowing and being and doing. And when we let our doing, even if we don't know what we should really be doing, come out of our being and out of this silence, then it's a profoundly different and hugely illuminated, healing, and integrative kind of doing, which may be exactly what the world is calling for, starving for, you might even say dying for. And so this is a game of tag, if you like, that where you're it. And it turns out everybody's it at the same time. And if I knew something, if I had been exposed over my lifetime, and I've been exposed to an awful lot, that had anything remotely as much wisdom and compassion and power, transformative, liberative power in it beyond mindfulness, I would certainly be pursuing that avenue rather than mindfulness. But in my 78 years, I haven't found it. Nothing's come even close. Although the beauty is everywhere and everything that, in the world, whether it's music or poetry or art or science of one kind or another, or engineering or cooking or lovemaking. I mean, it's all profound, but when it's held in awareness, it all becomes alive in a way that is not only healing, but transformative. And we are at a moment where we need full planetary healing and transformation and non-dual wisdom, which means that we can't make enemies of the people that actually we often think of as the enemy. And we have to bend over backwards not to fall into that kind of trap as self-righteous and as indignant as it may feel, and that we are absolutely right, because the other side feels the same way. They're just in a different universe, a different mental framework. And so it's using and theming all over again, but with a certain kind of narrative that always makes us the good guys, the right side. And that's basically a cancer of the earth. And we know what cancer does to the body, ultimately. So since none of us are here for long, that question of what my karmic assignment is right in this moment is really poignant and pregnant, if you don't mind my putting it this way, with exactly the possibilities that the earth needs, and exactly from you, not from the person sitting next to you. And whether you're a presenter or whether you're in the audience, every single one of us needs to show up in our fullness and in our beauty and in our love. And as Buckminster Fuller liked to say 50, 60 years ago, so far ahead of his time that, he used to refer to the earth, the planet, as spaceship earth. And this is absolutely an all hands on deck moment on spaceship earth, I would say. And so asking yourself what your karmic assignment is, what you love so much you'd pay to do it. And it could be like simply being who you already are. So there's no fixed answer that's the right answer, but to keep asking the question. I think if all of us are engaged in that, then we become, in some sense, the responsible cells of the one body of the planet, cells of the one body politic of the country, of whatever country you live in, of the society, of the city, of the community, of the town, and you take care of what needs taken care of, whatever that is, not for yourself, but for all beings. Because there's no separation between self and all beings. Whoever you think you are, that is such a small aspect of who you actually are. It's kind of just ridiculous, laughable. And yet we have such a kind of tendency to fall into I, me, and mining everything and thinking of ourselves as separate billiard balls banging into each other and wanting to, have the right trajectory when the right trajectory is waking up to the fact that we're all part of some larger whole. And when we do that, the heart and the lungs and the liver and the blood and the bones and the brain all work together. And you get the miracle of sentience and of embodied presence and even health. And we just take it for granted until, of course, because of the law of impermanence and fundamentally, the only reliable unfolding is that everything changes sooner or later. So this moment is precious because nothing is forever. So in the remaining minutes of this sitting, let's just rest in this silence that is full, pregnant with infinite potential. And I'll leave you with one of my very favorite quotes from Albert Einstein. And then we'll just move into silence, and I'll ring some bells at the bottom of at the end. Einstein wrote, he wrote this in reply to somebody who had written asking him a question because he was known, I remember this from my own early years, Einstein was like definitely the smartest man in the world. And so people would write to him about their personal problems because of course you'd want the smartest man in the world to, weigh in on your personal problems. So a rabbi had written asking his advice about how to talk to his 16-year-old daughter about the death of her 19-year-old sister, she was described as a beautiful, sinless child. So how would you respond to that? And this was Einstein's reply, remembering that, keeping in mind that Einstein single-handedly, with his mind and a piece of and a pencil and a piece of paper. Completely revolutionized our understanding of space and time and matter and energy. And a lot more than that, actually, but we won't go into it. A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. They, he, she experiences themselves, their thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty. Nobody is able to achieve this completely, but the striving for such achievement is in itself a part of the liberation. Yeah, Einstein used the word liberation, and a foundation for inner security. So simply dropping it underneath all the words, all the thoughts in your own mind, all the emotions that may, like waves on the surface of the sea, just arise and pass away. And let yourself be the knowing that your awareness always has been, always is. And that includes the not knowing and knowing what you don't know. That asymptotically approaches wisdom, wakefulness, kindness. And yeah, Einstein used the word compassion. Just this moment, just this silence, just this breath, just this sitting here. Whether you're sitting, lying down, standing, doesn't matter. Just the one love affair with this timeless moment we call now. Just this. Just this. And before I ring the bells, if your eyes have been closed, I'd invite you to open them and just turn towards the people on either side of you and just give them a nod or a bow or I don't know if anybody's hugging over there, but whatever seems appropriate to honor the beauty in the other and the fact that the other has shown up, which is huge. And just to say, okay, because it's so easy in a sort of session like this to think that, okay, now we're meditating and now John's going to ring some bells and then the meditation's going to be over and then we'll get back to the conference or our life or whatever. Life is the real meditation practice, not this half hour. There's no moment in which we're alive that we're not embodied creatures. And every moment can be an opportunity to show up and live into what your karmic assignment is at this moment. And if it's not knowing, that's the most powerful awareness of all, is not knowing. And not being afraid of that not knowing, but being really, really interested in it. So I'm going to, just for fun, I don't have to because the meditation's never going to end. I wish you all the best for the rest of this day and the whole of the conference, but I will, just for fun, to give it a kind of ending, ring these bells together. And just say, keep up the one great work and the love affair of being human. Thank you. And thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Soren. Thank you, Alyssa. Feels like a relay race. I hand the baton to Alyssa. And I may even hang around and listen for a few moments to what's coming next.
John, thank you for being with us. We're so grateful.